She vanished right in front of her house. Consider the fear of disappearing into thin air right in front of your own home. This is the terrifying reality that Jessica experienced, a young girl whose inexplicable disappearance shook a community and left investigators searching for answers. As the sun fell on a seemingly regular day in El Monte Springs, Florida, the neighborhood's peacefulness was disrupted by an unexpected and incomprehensible tragedy. Consider this scenario. A little girl, full of life and innocence, steps out of her family's automobile and onto the front yard, only to vanish without a trace moments later. How does such a weird and terrible story play out in front of her own house? What secrets are hiding beneath the surface of this peaceful suburban community? Join us as we investigate the mysterious case of Jessica's disappearance, uncovering stunning facts and twists that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Jessica's disappearance from in front of her home sent shockwaves across her community and perplexed detectives. Despite considerable search efforts and a difficult investigation, her whereabouts remained unclear until police received an unexpected call and discovered her lifeless body near a water pumping station. The subsequent investigation produced critical evidence, including a 911 call from the attacker and forensic signs pointing to Jessica's neighbor, James Crow, as the primary suspect. Crow's link to the victim, as well as the detection of dog hair matching the Shar-Pei on Jessica's clothing, generated additional suspicions. Detectives used advanced forensic analysis and NASA aid to improve the 911 call and authenticate Crow's voice as the caller. His arrest struck shockwaves throughout the town, as he had no prior criminal record and appeared to live inconspicuously with his wife. The case of Jessica's disappearance, which had twists and turns reminiscent of a detective TV program, was eventually solved with the arrest of her neighbor, revealing the horrible truth behind her unfortunate death. The disappearance. Following Jessica's disappearance, the once peaceful neighborhood of El Monte Springs, Florida, descended into panic and disbelief. The typical evening turned into a nightmare when Jessica, a young girl full of life and innocence, vanished into thin air in front of her own house. The shock and panic that followed were obvious as Jessica's relatives and neighbors scrambled for any trace of her. Witnesses reported seeing Jessica in the yard just moments before her abduction, adding to the mystery surrounding the bizarre incident. Despite the swift response of law enforcement and the community, Jessica remained missing, leaving a gap of unanswered questions and broken dreams. As the hours passed and dusk fell, the once peaceful neighborhood became a place of fear and uncertainty, with locals struggling with the unsettling reality of Jessica's mysterious disappearance. Every inch of the neighborhood was searched, and every lead was explored, but Jessica could not be found. The disappearance sent shockwaves through the community, leaving neighbors reeling at the unexpected and unexplainable loss of one of their own. The sense of unease and vulnerability that pervaded the neighborhood was apparent, as locals battled to come to grips with the brutal reality that such a horrible crime could happen right in their own backyard. Despite law enforcement's hard attempts and the community's steadfast support, Jessica's fate remained unknown, generating a lingering sense of unease that persisted long after she vanished. The investigation begins. As the sun fell on Jessica's terrible day, the inquiry into her abduction began with intensity and resolve. Law enforcement agents swamped the neighborhood, searching every street and alleyway for any clues that could lead them to Jessica's location. Interviews with Jessica's family, neighbors, and bystanders laid the framework for the inquiry, throwing light on the circumstances leading up to her abduction and creating a picture of the minutes prior her disappearance. With each passing hour, the search grew in breadth, with law officers expanding their efforts beyond Jessica's immediate surroundings to neighboring streets and locations of interest. Despite the gloom that had fallen over the neighborhood, a ray of light appeared as volunteers joined the search, determined to return Jessica home safely. The joint efforts of law enforcement and the community demonstrated the steadfast determination to discover the truth about Jessica's abduction, providing a ray of hope in the midst of crushing uncertainty. However, as the night progressed and Jessica remained missing, the inquiry entered a new phase marked by increased intensity and an unwavering quest of justice. Forensic clues. As the inquiry into Jessica's disappearance progressed, forensic professionals methodically examined every piece of evidence in the hopes of identifying vital clues that would shed light on her destiny. Among the most significant discoveries were forensic clues revealed at the site where Jessica's lifeless body was eventually recovered. Traces of dog hair, subsequently identified as Shar-Pei breed, were discovered on Jessica's clothing, prompting investigators to focus their attention on her neighbor, James Crow, who had a Sharpay. Furthermore, human hair discovered on Jessica's body revealed additional information about the perpetrator's identity, and forensic examination is underway to extract DNA profiles for comparison. Foreign fibers detected on Jessica's clothing suggested linkages to the perpetrator's vehicle and house, implying that Jessica may have been moved elsewhere prior to her terrible death. Tire traces discovered near the crime scene were thoroughly photographed and investigated, providing potential leads to help trace the perpetrator's movements. With each forensic clue discovered, investigators pieced together the puzzle of Jessica's disappearance, getting closer to the truth behind this horrific mystery. The 911 call. One of the turning points in the investigation into Jessica's abduction was the discovery of a 911 call made shortly after she went missing. Despite the caller's efforts to conceal their identity, forensic scientists were able to improve the audio quality of the call, exposing critical facts that would eventually aid in identifying the offender. The caller, whose voice was originally muffled and distorted, was subsequently recognized as Jessica's neighbor, James Crow. The horrifying news shook the town, as neighbors struggled to accept that someone they knew could be responsible for such a horrible act. The call's content, albeit brief and enigmatic, provided vital insights into the perpetrator's mentality and behavior, allowing detectives to piece together the events surrounding Jessica's disappearance. With the caller's identification confirmed, law enforcement agents stepped up their attempts to apprehend James Crow and bring him to jail for his role in Jessica's untimely death. The 911 call was an important piece of evidence in the investigation, marking a watershed moment in the search for answers and closure for Jessica's bereaved family members. The arrest and trial. Law enforcement agents moved quickly to detain James Crow after discovering forensic evidence linking him to Jessica's disappearance and learning the terrible details of his 911 call. James Crow was caught and charged with Jessica's kidnapping and murder, causing shockwaves throughout the community as neighbors struggled with the disturbing reality about someone they had known for years. As the case progressed, prosecutors produced substantial evidence against Crow, including DNA tests, tire tracks matching his vehicle, and the horrifying 911 call. Despite maintaining his innocence, Crow's trial captivated the nation as the details of Jessica's disappearance were made public. In an unexpected turn of events, Crow eventually confessed to the crime, giving terrible details of Jessica's death. His conviction provided Jessica's family and community with some closure, but the wounds left by her terrible disappearance would never heal completely. James Crow's arrest and trial marked the end of a lengthy investigation and served as a reminder of the unwavering pursuit of justice in the face of unimaginable tragedy. The case of Jessica's disappearance ended with the conviction of her neighbor, James Crow, despite the hurdles provided by a lack of physical evidence and the crime scene's remote location. Dedicated police work and modern forensic procedures enabled detectives to piece together the jigsaw and bring Jessica's killer to justice. While Jessica's awful fate left scars that would never fully heal, her legacy lives on as a tribute to her family's resiliency and law enforcement's devotion to pursuing justice. As the final verdict was delivered and justice was served for Jessica, her memory served as a beacon of hope amidst the darkness, reminding us of the resilience of the human spirit in the face of adversity. Subscribe now to uncover the full story behind Jessica's disappearance, from the chilling moments leading up to her vanishing act to the gripping investigation that ultimately brought her perpetrator to justice.